Well, welcome to the AMA Pittsburgh's Collegiate Conversations series. The series is sponsored by the Roland School of Business at Point Park University. The Pittsburgh chapter of the American Marketing Association is the essential community for marketers in this region. There's no other organization that provides more ways for marketers and academics to connect with people and resources they need to be successful. And you can learn more about this organization by going to amapittsburgh.org. We do want to let you know that we have an upcoming event, another collegiate conversation focused on virtual networking on November 18th, featuring Dr. John Rindy from Slippery Rock University. Please go to the website again, amapittsburgh.org, and you will be available to register for that session at the site. Now let's move right into today's session. We have a really exciting session for you focused on SEO business magic. We are so pleased to have Dorit Sasson with us. She is the creator of the SEO business magic system. She's also a highly skilled SEO consultant, copywriter, trainer, and speaker. She works with companies, small businesses, and nonprofits to increase online visibility with leads and conversions. She's an award-winning author of The Accidental Soldier, a memoir of service and sacrifice in the Israeli Defense Forces, and the newly released Sand and Steel, a memorial of longing and finding home. There are some supplemental materials to today's session on SEO business magic. If you haven't already downloaded them, you can go to seobusinessmagic.com to get those materials. And again, we're so excited to welcome Dorit. And so Dorit, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Doreen, for handing over the baton. I am going to jump right in and share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. Let me know if you can't. I'm all good? Okay. So this is a topic that I am incredibly passionate about, and I deal with it all the time. So it's one thing to live in a spreadsheet. It's another thing to talk about what happens and the magic that happens in a spreadsheet. So basically, the whole joy and pleasure of business magic is all about the idea of what keywords are, what they do, and how they help drive traffic, which is the money part of SEO. A little bit about me. And by the way, I'm so thrilled to be here, Doreen, and thank you, Ashley, for inviting me so I can talk about this. I didn't mean to jump right into content, but I'm really happy that you guys are opening the doors to this opportunity. I am, as you know, an author, and I have 2 memoirs out, and that is a little bit about the story behind me. And the whole idea of this business magic brand, so to speak, really started back in the day when I was trying to build my author platform, and I didn't quite know what marketing was. I didn't quite know how to reach an audience in the way that authors are supposed to, because today, many people, including authors, need to have a platform. And that was a big deal back then, and it still is. But one thing was really, really important in terms of getting the ball rolling, and that was SEO. And I heard about this term, and I wanted to be part of it, but I kind of felt like it was too nerdy and too geeky and too technical for me to kind of wrap my head around, until I actually got certified back in 2018. And it was a whole big turning point moment, because I started to realize that there was a huge practical benefit to SEO. And that's kind of where this whole idea turned around for me, that SEO is not a geeky thing. It's actually something very, very practical. And I learned a really hard lesson about Google and the magic of keywords. In those early days, I was also marketing myself as a copywriter, as an SEO copywriter, but I liked to be the writer, and I liked to be cute, and I liked to be esoteric, and I like to be a little bit playful with words. But Google doesn't like cute, and Google doesn't like whimsical. Google likes direct, authoritative queries to anything that people are putting in, whether it's a how-to or a transactional query like business services. And people were searching for SEO copywriter, and I just wasn't showing up. I had pages on my website that were saying, are you a silent Susie? Well, nobody knows what a silent Susie is. So it would not help any search engine to figure out how to reach me other than my name and maybe something that had to do with writing or memoir writing or marketing. And so all the ideas about whether or not I was marking myself correctly, really, I was just being playful with my words, trying to figure out my way as I go. So what is SEO? Some of you may have seen this term and may have connected and may have heard about this, may have put this kind of idea of SEO in your head. Let me just make sure I'm in presentation mode. Yeah, sorry. And the idea of SEO is that really you're trying to convince Google and all the search engines of the world that your website and your blog is useful. And what does that mean? It means that the content that you have is actually useful for the search engines, but it's also matching a query, matching a term, a search term, could be a question, could be a service, could be a product, anything that people are struggling at night with. My peeps were looking for how to write a memoir back in the day, or how to market yourself as an author, and how to use SEO as an author, and author SEO, because that was my first audience that I tried marketing to, and I did not reach them. And that made me very frustrated, made me very upset. So basically, it was showing me, it was a real test case to see whether or not I had what it took to write copy that was in my voice, but also could capture leads through my website, could bring me the audience that was really, really searching for me, and I can build a connection with them. So this is where the magic of SEO, in my opinion, happens. It happens in those money phrases, but it happens also with non-money phrases. The magic is in the money, meaning that is where people can turn into a customer. That's where a prospect can be a customer. But it also is where they learn more about you and more about what it is that you offer in terms of services and products. I know that many of you are students, and the business part of SEO may have just been something as a theory, but it has a huge practical significance, because the idea of search engines and what they stand for and how they work is not just in the actual search term, it's in the whole content strategy that we'll talk about in a little bit, and I'll show how they're linked. So for today, since we don't have all the time in the world, I'm going to focus on the who, the what, and the why. The why is also the biggest piece. Why use certain search terms as opposed to others, right? And we're diving into keyword research when we go that way. So again, how to recognize those money key phrases and understanding how many keywords are part of an overall content strategy. I'll show you an example of a spreadsheet, how I organize it. I won't probably have enough time to really dive into too much keyword research, but I hope that today I'll give you a little bit of taste of how I do some of the brainstorming and work behind it. So, I mean, these are things that people ask themselves when they are running a business, and many professionals out there who have websites, they're asking themselves, well, why should I care about SEO? Why should businesses care about SEO? And how is it important for your business, right? And have you used SEO in the past, pre-pandemic and now? And how does your target audience search? Now, some of you may not be running a website, and you may not have the ability to answer some of these questions if you're not in the thick of it, but it is definitely something that I was just saying earlier, that SEO has this kind of love-hate relationship with websites, because the minute that a business owner will start to build a website, they don't think necessarily about SEO. They don't think about the business as an SEO enterprise. They start to worry about, how does the website look? Does it have a good branding feel? What are the colors like? Are there enough pages? What pages should be on there? What pillar pages or service pages should be on there? And these are the questions that come up. SEO doesn't come up until the end when there's not enough search traffic or volume or conversions. So in terms of those organic searches, 53% of website traffic comes from organic search. These people are directly Googling or putting into any search any browser certain terms. And almost a third of those consumers are searching for local businesses. So we're talking local SEO. And believe it or not, money key phrases are part of that search. Now, I didn't get to the point of figuring out how the research didn't say how much versus of those money key phrases, but we can assume that if they're searching, a good part of them are searching for services in the local business sectors. So why money keywords and key phrases? Why am I even bothering to talk about them when there's so much to talk about in terms of the actual key phrase research? Well, first of all, I thought this would be a really cool place to start because there's a lot of talk about money and SEO, but in terms of applications, we need a little bit more to get into it. But this is the piece that people professionals and small business owners and all the companies of the world tend to think about sometimes too late in the game when they're trying to figure out how to convince Google that their blog is useful. And I'm for thinking proactively. I believe in having a strategy so that you are planning those keywords right when your website is up and running. And the practical application behind that is that you realize that it takes a long time for search engines to spider content, especially if you're in a competitive niche where there's a lot of people searching for similar terms like yours, and your business might have similar features and benefits to other products and services in that area. So it's really important to pick those, the money key phrases are important because they can lead to a very high conversion and they're transactional, especially when there's a call to action, meaning on a service page, there is a buy now button or something that actually tells the user, this is something you should do, take action on. Doesn't necessarily have to be something they buy, but it can be something that they opt into, like a freebie. So we're talking maybe a free ebook, maybe a free ebook on relationships and relationship buildings. I've seen those as well. And they complete the consumer buying cycle. Maybe some of you have heard about what that means. A consumer buying cycle is the 3-part stages. I think maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5. I'm never quite sure because I always see it represented differently. They have the awareness. We'll talk about that a little bit and further on. And they complete that transaction piece when a user is getting to know a product or a service or a thought leader or whatever it is. And then they have that impulse to take out their credit card and to sign up or buy something. And the third and also the very important one is that they reduce bounce rates and increase visibility. I see this all the time with content on web pages where I call it a topic drip. There's a lot of text, but there's very little call to action. And there's very little ability to make a decision in a split second. What do I do now? What does the user need to do? A lot of times when I read the data in Google Analytics, I see high bounce rates, meaning they don't stay very long on a page and they tend to jump off, and they don't have a strategy. They don't do something when they're on that page. And typically the common problem is that they don't have a call to action. The money phrase is not integrated into the text, and there's too much text, and that's overwhelming to anybody. And that's part of the problem with online visibility. When you have too much of it, anything never is a good thing. So the real magic behind magic key phrases that are money transactional ones is that you're not only making a sale, but you're really connecting with people. And when a person or a business offers something that you need and want that can really solve your problem, it's also helping that user see that there is a person who's thinking like them, who has the same pain points like them, and that builds a connection. And this is a great quote that I keep reminding myself when I'm looking for keywords all day long. For the most part, you are connecting with people and new people who might not have found you other than randomly putting in keywords into Google. And I think that is such a powerful idea, is that, people sometimes connect with me and I say, how do you find me? And they're like, oh, I just put stuff into Google. And I just find that so mind-blowing even today. And it became even more of a necessity in our pandemic world, where people are searching, and the trends show that the way they are searching is changing all the time. So a quick thing about money keywords and money key phrases, and some of you, may have heard the buying cycle, the buying phase. And typically what happens is they put in words into Google, any search engine, buy or purchase, but it doesn't have to be only that. It can be others as well. And we'll look at a few examples. They're highly specific. The person who will put and typically buy, somebody who's ready, somebody who has been educated, somebody who has done the research, somebody who cares enough to do some of the research and read blogs, read FAQs, has delved into the topic, has spent enough time making a decision, narrowing it down so that there is enough information to make a conversion or opt into something. Money keywords and key phrases are part of that conversion process, right? And what I mentioned before is you're not just getting them to buy your product or a service, as we call it in the bigger digital marketing puzzle, right? You have the whole strategy, digital marketing. You are, your content, you have social media. There are many different ways to build an online presence today. And some of the buy can be on an Instagram post, right? But on a website where SEO has a little bit more juice, your prospect is typically going to find your products from a social post, jump over to your website and learn more about you, or listen to a video, and then still make that decision whether or not it's worth going to your website. So ultimately, all roads lead to grandma's house. All roads want to go back to that website because that is where all the good stuff is housed, and products and services, and that's your business card. So we don't want to just look at the money key phrases as just something that they have to buy into. You're providing an opportunity to educate them on something they really need. And that content stream and that content funnel doesn't just start in social media, although it's a very big part of that. It's also jumping into YouTube, listening to a video, and then jumping to the website. So there's a lot of jumping around before they actually might make a purchase or opt into a mailing list. So I wanted to share with you some examples of money search terms. And these are really, really important to keep in mind that, typically, as I mentioned before, they're typically the buy and the purchase ones, but they're not limited to those. As I said, names of products and packages and services. These typically fall under what we call a website's pillar page or service page, where sometimes I'll see that a blog post is getting huge amounts of traction, but the actual service page is not. And this is very typical for a lot of websites that I see, because they haven't yet identified the names of products, packages, and services. And sometimes these are obvious and straightforward, and sometimes they are not. And the reason being is that sometimes coaching, like a lot of people out there are coaching right now, coaching can fall into a number of different deliverables. There are coaching calls. You can have a free coaching call. That's an SEO money key phrase, because that person can opt in and have a call with you and then buy your services. And then there's things that are like PR packages, PR online packages that I noticed. And so even the ones that seem obvious, sometimes you have to do a little bit more digging to find them. And then they can be optimized in accord with others as well. So for example, life coaching packages, free coaching call, hard hats. Back in the day, I did some work for a big safety company, and one of their big selling products was hard hats. And that combined with their brand name was a big one. And that's a product. So money key phrases don't have to be only what we mentioned before, services, business communication services. So all of these are money search terms that, when combined with other types of search terms in the buying cycle, are creating a very content-rich experience for the user. This is the optimal, ideal SEO experience. It's not typical to find these types of pages. I will say that again. Typically, I will fall on a pillar page, and there's so much opportunity to get an SEO page, to get a page ranked really high for SEO when I don't see a lot of those search terms. So this is one thing that I'm always looking out for as opportunity. More examples include brand names of companies, businesses, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs. These alone have their own SEO search juice, search engine juice, SEO magic juice, whatever you want to call it, but it's not enough. And that's why when we can combine, and this is, by the way, this is another one, a money search term can also, I noticed this on SEMrush, a search tool that I use. Money search terms can be both informational and transactional. Now, I found this really interesting, and I had to ask myself, why is it that this question that I noticed, that is a key phrase because it's a question, what is the best way to handle non-assertive communication, appeared the user was looking for information, but also it was planting seeds in the user's brain to get some kind of transaction going. So maybe they are looking for a product that will help them do this better. And by that, I think the key here maybe is best way. They're looking to kind of see if there is such a way. So maybe the next step could be, here is a free ebook on non-assertive communication. Now, I didn't do any research around this, but this was part of my thinking. I was like, how can that be a transactional key phrase when it's also asking a question? And I found that really interesting. So when a brand name is not enough, we look to the next steps. It's not enough. And also, people are very smart these days, and they don't want to see a web copy infused with so much brandness that they get turned off. So I like to go to the next level and combine the two together. And we call this, in SEO lingo, a long tail branded key phrase. Now, why long? That's a big mouthful. Long tail key phrase by itself can be two things together, a cluster of key phrases, like business communication services, and then the name of the company. In this case, you're creating it as a brand. So the name of the product, the service, the opportunity, it's a thought leader, plus, this is a little bit of a formula here, and the name of the company or the business or the thought leader, right? Two of those together can create a really juicy, long tail branded key phrase. I make these suggestions all the time for services, companies, all the time, because it's a neat opportunity. It's a really neat opportunity when you don't overdo it. And not too many businesses capitalize on this. And so this is a little nugget that anybody here who has a business going, an online business, an online product, an online service, it's a neat way to make a little bit more magic happen on a pillar page that is not getting enough love. And I see this as a great opportunity to just see where the potential for two different key phrases that have the juice, they stand alone, and then when you push them together, can create a little bit more juice. So I wanted to get back to the idea of what is a keyword that drives web traffic, meaning the money key phrase. Sometimes people will look at these key phrase results and say, well, 10 searches or 30 searches, that's really not a lot. And yes, I mean, if you're just starting out and want to create some traction with your website and you're looking at 30 and it's like, but you have to also look at it that these are 30 people who are engaged in the product, in the service, and they want that information. So more about engaged experiences in a bit, but this is the kind of mindset shift that we as people who are doing this and people who are learning about this need to kind of embrace, that it's okay to have 30 searches. As a fact, it's recommended. Many other people in my camp might say, aim for a little higher, but if I want to create results and I want to get engagement, I'm going to look at the sweet spot, even if it's only 30 searches, because those 30 are engaged and they want that kind of information. They want that service. Relevant for Google, meaning it is what it stands for in that niche. So safety products could be maybe safety products for cosmetics. It could be safety products for industries and commercial projects. So we have to be really careful with the type of product that we're putting out there in the search terms that we're using. And again, we are doing the keyword research to find these things, and you'd be surprised how many times I find that people have not done the keyword research, and a lot of it is because it's again, what I mentioned before, nerdy and geeky and not very interesting, but it actually has a lot of it can give you a lot of inspiration for good content when you are writing a blog post. So really, I won't go too much into the keyword research piece, but a lot of times people just want to skip it because it is time consuming to sit in front of a spreadsheet and make decisions and look at numbers and figure out data. That can be time consuming, but it's also extremely beneficial because you know the money part of the search, you know what people are searching, and data does not lie. Data never lies. So the 30 people that you found could be the life and death of a website at the very beginning when you're just trying to get it up and running and getting it optimized. It should not be skipped. Now, recommendation is how much time to spend on it. That's a whole nother question. Now that you've known a little bit more about money part of the key phrase research area, I want to just shift gears a little bit and talk quickly about what that strategy would look like for the user. Once you get data on a spreadsheet with all the key phrases that you think are the money ones, and in my spreadsheet, I actually outline them in green and I titled them the primary key phrases. So they have that kind of money feeling, the green color, but those are the ones that I go after. And I need to know what to do with all that data. So the next step is to interlink them to the actual web pages to help increase the traffic and conversion. I mentioned before, pillar pages, which are important for the website to get up and running because that's where people want to know more about what it is that you offer. Money, key phrases, and pillar pages are interlinked, but they are not the only way, and they go together like peanut butter and jelly, right? And I'm sorry, I know it's dinner time. I really don't mean, I did not intentionally make this so that everybody would get hungry, but I am going to move quickly on so that nobody else does. But pillar pages are also known, as I said, as service pages, and they are a popular prime real estate on a website, a great opportunity for conversion and to know a prospect. Another key page, and again, this goes back to strategy. So when you are having a conversation, let's say with a web developer, and you're trying to figure out what key pages need to be up there, another key page that also sometimes doesn't get any love, and I'm baffled about this, is an FAQ page, a conversion powerhouse. And the way that works for money key phrases and content and keywords are interlinked is that they are engaging and converting and educating your prospect at the same time. And if you think about it, maybe some of you have had experiences when you bought something from an online product store, and you were trying to figure out, you know, is there a return policy? Is there a trial period? Can I test it? You know, what kind of product can I test? And so it's nobody just engages with an FAQ page for no reason, right? And I read them all the time because that's my industry and I enjoy doing it. But typically, if you are not interested in that company, you will not read that FAQ page. But it's a great prime real estate for prospects, because here's an example. Let's say I am running an online PR business, right? One of the examples I will write is I want to educate them about PR. They don't know anything about PR, public relations. They want to know more about it. And so one of the ways I can educate them is have a FAQ schema, which is kind of like that accordion. When you push that plus and you get an answer and it's kind of showing up as a minus. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. And you are asking, okay, what is an FAQ? What is a PR online? How does it work? What's the period of time? And these are actual search terms. What is an online PR package? People are actually asking this. What is it? Where can I learn more about your online PR packages? What is your return policy for X product? Another website here in Pittsburgh, they have a mother baby business, and it was all about turning them into questions for an FAQ page. And I first looked at these terms and I said, this is a great opportunity for turning them into baby products. And how safe is the Moonlight Slumber organic mattress? And how safe is the slumber mattress? And all of these actually have relevance to Google because they are things that are coming up. And then a question that a prospect will ask in the awareness phase that lends themselves to a purchase is, what does this product do, right? What type of collagen is Great Lakes? What is grass-fed gelatin? These are all questions that they're asking in the awareness part of the buying cycle to try to figure out whether or not they need to make a purchase. But it's very much geared towards making a purchase, because once they figure out the function, the role, what type it is, they're probably going to want to know how to buy it and where they can get it. So keyword research really is a content strategy opportunity. It allows you to ask questions and ask yourself, well, how are these people searching? Are they capturing visitors at all phases of the sales cycle on key web pages, or is it only for something else? By me doing some of the research, let's say on this page, maybe my page focuses only on gelatin and those products around it. If I had a web page with all different products, that could also work. But if I want to create FAQs on each one of those pages, or I want to have all the products available around the FAQs, then I'm actually creating another content strategy where I am educating them and getting them to opt in to buying the product at some point. So with that said, this is the kind of summing up. The awareness phase is, what I just mentioned before. I want to buy this product. I don't know what kind. Should I buy kosher? Should I buy grass-fed? What kind is it? I want to know general information on why I should take it. What does it do? And I'm just asking myself these questions as I go. And then as I'm narrowing down some of the options and reviewing my choices, I'm going to actually ask, well, what type is this collagen? Is it the Great Lakes brand? And that actually is the next step to buying that product. And the next thing that they will go and do is shop collagen to go packets, where to buy Great Lake gelatin, collagen hydrosolate, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Great Lakes, right? And so this was all part of this one page that I found great opportunities for. So asking yourself, what would my target audience at any stage be typing into Google to solve their problem, get more information? This is key. This is super important, because whenever I feel like I'm stuck in the keyword research part of what I'm trying to do, I will ask myself, what do they need? And that usually helps me move the keyword research part a lot further and a lot faster, because then I actually put myself into their minds and I actually say, okay, I am this user. I am trying to figure out certain things, and now I can figure it out in a different way. So again, all roads lead to grandma's house, in this case, the target audience. Your customer is the Google user. You need a clear picture of who that customer is, what's important to him or her, how you can help. And by getting to know your target market psyche, it will be easier to do that keyword research and come up with lists of targeted keywords and key phrases they are entering into Google. When I start this work, I typically, when I start working with a company, a client directly or through an agency, typically I will get an intake form, so that helps me understand who is this customer, what their pain points are. Sometimes it's not enough to just expect them to hand me that information. I need to get a little bit more information because they know their customer better than me and they know what their product is. So it's much easier for me to do the work.
We just got another question, and actually related to what you're just talking about with the audience influence.
Oh, that's so funny.
How does audience influence keywords? And should that also be considered in the research of pooling the money keywords?
I'm not sure what I think influence here means conversion. So again, I think this kind of ties in to what I mentioned earlier. The money key phrases is going to be the part of the list of spreadsheet, but you're going to need to do other things as well, like figuring out, well, is there a how-to opportunity? Because a money key phrase can't be enough to complete the buying cycle. And we want to make sure that there's enough key phrases on all the different levels. So awareness and research will help them take action. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was the kind of where I wanted to end with the SEO mindset. There's really no easy way to do this kind of work. If some of you probably are asking yourself, well, oh my God, how am I going to do keyword research? It's too hard. Well, there's a little bit of a mindset that goes behind it. And it does require a little bit of, giving yourself some patience and giving yourself some grace, because it takes time to find the right ones. And if you've never done this kind of keyword research before, it can be a little challenging and a little tough. So you want to kind of give yourself some time, pace yourself. Don't get too overwhelmed. Don't get too nervous, because, a lot of it, as I mentioned, is just trial and error. Sometimes you just have to experiment and see what works and what kind of audience are we talking about, right? It does have that necessity of figuring out who we are really talking to, who is our audience. And again, I speak to this from a business perspective, from a business owner perspective, right? Sometimes they're like, oh my God, I need these keywords. How am I going to figure out how to do them? And then they're like, well, I need to do them now because it's going to take some time for me to get the content spidered and indexed. So there's really no better opportunity than now, even though it takes forever to get keywords ranked, it seems like it. But the reason why it takes a while is because if you are a young site and you do not have site authority, you're probably new to the whole website world. And it takes time for that website to get spidered and ranked, especially when you're up against all the ORGs, the EDUs of the world and other website and other businesses. So I'm going to open it now to Q&A. If anybody wants to, I know that there were some questions before, but now is a really good time to shoot any other questions. Let's see in the chat.
I got another one in the chat from a faculty member who was looking for suggestions for students who are interested in SEO, or how they could get started learning more about this or get more immersed in the process.
That's a great question. I am actually developing a course for people who want to learn how to get started with SEO in terms of keyword research and how to get those right terms, right? And it's actually a tutorial with a video part to it, where there's a lot of what I just started to do earlier today. And so if anybody wants to get more information about that course and when I'll be running it, I'm going to put it in the chat. You can just write it into your browsers and keep it there, and you'll get notification. And when you opt into my website, you'll find out more about that course. I hope to get it up and running in the beginning of 2022. But and it will focus on the SEO basics and the best practices of keyword research. But if you are looking just to get started right away, you don't want to wait, you don't have time to wait, I really suggest going to Moz. Moz is a great place to learn all about SEO and keyword research. And that's how I learned a little bit more about what I do now. But I also got certified by, and I'll put it in the chat here, by Heather Lloyd Martin from the SEO Constant Institute. And that's a certification course. There's a lot of free SEO courses, I think, through LinkedIn that you can probably do through some of the lynda.com, which is a great way to start, but it's cursory. It doesn't, I think that's how I should pronounce Linda, or maybe Linda. And I learned a little bit more, but I have to say the SEO theory I got when I first got certified. And that really gave me a huge, huge landing pad into SEO. And the work that I did with Heather Lloyd Martin really, really was instrumental and made everything else look like I could handle, you know? So, so it's just, I'm throwing out a lot of different resources out there. Moz.com is a really good one. Search Engine Journal is another one. A lot of resources too. And of course, you can sign up to get more about the course that I'm offering in January of 2022.
Oh, this is very helpful. That's great. So everyone can see those resources in the chat and investigate them when they have a moment. And you got your certification through the SEO content?
I got it through the
Institute?
SEO Content Institute.
Now, is that an introductory level, or would that be something that might be beneficial to students, or is that more advanced?
That is a full certification course.
Okay.
So it's really not a course in the sense that it's just, you know, a piece of it. It's an actual certification course. I mean, I'm sure that if it were to, you know, people didn't want to do it as a certification, I don't think that that is an option that's offered. But it was a great way to learn about SEO. It really took me through everything that I needed to know with confidence.
All right, I got another question.
Yeah.
Some of these are coming in private chat messages to me, so feel free to use the
use the
and
full
send them
chat
to everyone when you send your
can't-
questions out there. But this question is there a way as a student that I can practice using developing keywords? Is there some vehicle to practice?
Yeah. I mean, when you say developing, I'm sure that you're just wanting to try and experiment. And that's what it feels like to me. I mean, the spreadsheet that I put in, you know, if you just want to look at certain search terms and see how they're functioning and what their search volume is, that's good practice to kind of get used to looking into a search tool like SEMrush, which does, by the way, there are free search tools. So I guess the magic would be in playing with the search tool, not so much in the spreadsheet. Google Planner, Keyword Planner has one, I think, Google Keyword Planner. I don't use any free ones because I don't get enough juice from them. I need robust ones. So I pay for a subscription every month to get that information. And SEMrush, SEMrush is a very good one. It's extremely robust and it offers a lot of digital marketing data and analytics, but it's expensive if you don't really need to use it. So they offer a trial, and you can use the trial and then kind of say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to pay for a subscription, which a lot of people do. And then they are like, well, I really like this, but I don't want to pay $99 a month. So that's probably going to not be so appealing to some of you if you want to experiment. But to play with it, I would suggest finding a free search tool, SEO tool. And I think, I mean, I'm out of ideas for free ones because I only pay for them. So I'm probably not helpful in that respect. But I mean, that would be my advice would be, if you want to, you know, if you're working on a project for, you know, a digital marketing course that you're taking and you want to play around with those key phrases, that's probably a good way to get some hands-on expertise in that. I mean, that's a whole course in itself. I mean, I'm not doing justice by just, you know, it's like, well, tell me how to do this, you know. So
that's great, because I think you're giving them a lot of ideas and things they can think about. And, you know, for students, right, for students who are interested, yeah, they probably wouldn't purchase. They wouldn't have need necessarily to purchase the tool, but some of the free tools could definitely give them enough information to get started and start working with keywords and understanding key search terms and phrases, right?
Right. I mean, and eventually, if they're interested enough, then there's the next level up, which, you know, you can always advance up to. But to play and to get used to and feel comfortable, you know. Does keyword research and SEO relate to hashtag research and things? Okay, I'm really glad that people are bringing this up, because my understanding, and this is based from certification days, that wasn't that long ago, is that hashtags don't work in the same way that SEO search terms do, because, you know, and it might have changed, and there might be a difference of opinion here, and I can recheck this. But my understanding is that they do not function in the same way, because you're working in the social media part versus how people are searching online in a search tool, right, in the browser. Typically, a person won't put into a browser Facebook and then the keyword, which might also be a hashtag, but it doesn't function in the same way. So the answer is no, because you're trying to get to a website and to learn more about a product or a service, and it might be mentioned on social media, but not in the same way. Now, the way it does reciprocate social media is that we have what we call backlinks. So if somebody is mentioning a Facebook post on a website, then it can get SEO juice, because that site has authority, and it's now leading people to the website that was mentioned on that other website. So that is reciprocal, but the way a person would search does not have the same function. Yeah, so no, the user intent is not the same on social media unless it is being reciprocated in some way through another person's website, and they're mentioning that social media post, or they're mentioning that blog that appeared on social media. But the way we are searching for search terms is not going to have the same result as it would be if I was doing something like this on social media.
I think that's important then to understand that there is a bit of a distinction between the digital marketing side with online and the social media side, and there can be overlaps, but they're not fully integrated.
They're not exactly those word I'm looking for. They're not fully integrated, and they just reciprocate each other, but they don't have the same integration and the same functionality. Let's see, any more questions that I may have missed?
I don't see any more questions in the chat, and this was absolutely a fantastic session to provide an overview of SEO magic and give everyone in the audience something to think about and some ideas for how they might be able to practice working with keywords and better prepare for maybe a career in digital marketing at some point. So this is really great information. Thank you so much, Dorit.
You're welcome. I'm glad that it was helpful and useful, and sorry I didn't have more time to do the fun stuff of getting into keyword research, but that could be a part 2.
That sounds great. And you know, as we end tonight's session, I always like to wrap up by asking you, what key takeaway would you love everyone in the session today to remember?
That's a great question. To not be intimidated by SEO, don't be like me. And really, I mean, it can be really, really practical, but it also has that intimidating thing. And I know that courses are working hard, instructors and professors are working really hard to integrate it, but so it doesn't, it doesn't have the same, I was just mentioning earlier that it doesn't get integrated in the same way with marketing. And we SEO people need some love too. So I would love it if you just would stay with an open mind and not get intimidated by it, and just realize that marketing and SEO really, really go together. In the professional world, sometimes it doesn't look like that, but when you're learning and you're trying to figure out things that sound interesting, just keep learning more and more about it, because it actually is a fascinating concept to think about it. So just have an open mind and keep that mindset open.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it's a good reminder that SEO really is part of an overall marketing strategy. So it's something that we should be thinking about as a tactic that supports that overall organizational strategy. Yeah,
Exactly.
Great way to wrap it up today, Dorit. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for spending time with us today. And we'd also like to make sure we thank our sponsor, Roland School of Business at Point Park University, for presenting this session, and the AMA Pittsburgh for hosting today. For those in the audience, remember that we do have another Collegiate Conversation series coming up on November 18th. Jump over to amapittsburgh.org and get registered for that session. But thank you so much. We appreciate your time today. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.